The overhead bins rattled first, a soft metallic tremor that made passengers glance up from their phones and magazines. Then the cabin lights flickered once-twice, dimming to an amber glow before stabilizing. Flight 447 hummed through the night at 37,000 feet, carrying 312 souls across the Black Atlantic. Diana Reeves sat in 7B middle seat economy premium. Her hands rested on a worn Boeing 777-300ER technical manual, Section 29 hydraulic systems. The pages were dog-eared margins filled with pencil notes. She wore a gray cardigan from Goodwill, $8 sleeves, frayed and faded jeans. No jewelry except a cheap chronograph watch with a cracked band. She looked like nobody. The man in 3A didn't think so. What the hell is that smell? Marcus Harrington's voice carried across 6 rows, 52 silver-haired tailored suit. His third scotch sat empty on the armrest. Like discount laundry detergent. Jesus. Paige Monroe, the lead flight attendant, paused mid-aisle. Sir, if there's a concern, the concern, Marcus interrupted, gesturing toward the back, is that I paid $4,000 for first class and I can smell coach. He leaned into the aisle, squinting toward row 7. Oh, her. Diana didn't look up. She turned to Paige, slow, deliberate. Look at that, Marcus continued louder now. Row 7, bargain bin Cardigan reading a pilot manual, like she understands a single word. Vanessa Sterling. 38 blonde highlights phone camera raised, giggled into her live stream 2 rows behind Diana. Oh my God, you guys, this lady is literally reading a Boeing manual. Does she think she's going to fly the plane? Diana's right hand twitched. A faint tremor. She pressed it flat against her thigh. 1, 2, 3. The tremor subsided. Outside the window, lightning flashed. Deep inside the cloud bank ahead, Diana's eyes flicked to her watch. The second hand swept past 12. She counted under her breath. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4. Thunder rolled through the fuselage. Diana's lips moved silently. 4 seconds, 0.8 miles per second, 3.2 miles out. She glanced at the airspeed indicator reflection in the window. Ground speed 280 knots, 12 minutes to intercept. She wrote in her margin, FL370, cell closure 12 Milner, deviation south insufficient. Nobody saw. Seriously, Marcus said. Who let her on board cheap clothes, greasy hair? Does she even speak English? Paige stepped toward him. Sir, all passengers have the right to travel. Please lower your voice. I'm not saying she doesn't have a right, Marcus shot back. I'm saying she doesn't belong. Greg Tomlinson, mid-40s polo shirt, leaned toward Vanessa's camera. That manual's outdated anyway. New 777s use fly-by-wire. She's reading the wrong book. Vanessa gasped. So she's not even reading the right book. Diana's jaw tightened. She didn't look up, didn't correct them. Engage and you lose. Stay silent. Stay invisible. The cabin lights flickered again. Longer this time. 3 full seconds before struggling back. A baby started crying. Diana's eyes snapped to the overhead panel. The flicker pattern was rhythmic. 0.8 seconds between surges. Proximity lightning or generator imbalance. She wrote, electrical anomaly. Check gen load. Evan Carter. The first officer walked past on a cabin check. 1200 hours, most of it in calm air. He paused at Diana's row, glancing at her book. Interesting reading, he said. Friendly, but condescending. You a pilot? Diana looked up. Her eyes were dark, steady. Just curious, Evan smiled. Well, don't worry. We've got everything covered. He tapped the bulkhead twice and walked on. Diana watched him go. Watched the slight hitch in his stride when the plane jolted. 1,200 hours. Maybe 300 actual instrument. The plane hit another bump. Harder. Drinks rattled. Captain Sullivan's voice crackled over the PA. Folks, Captain Sullivan. We've got weather ahead, nothing to worry about. Seatbelt signs staying on. Flight attendants, take your seats. His voice sounded tight. Diana heard it immediately. Stress, fatigue, or worse. Lightning flashed again. Closer. Diana counted. 1 Mississippi. 2. Crack. Thunder immediate and deafening. The plane shuddered. Diana opened her eyes. 2 miles, she whispered. Nobody heard her. Not yet. The turbulence was building. Not gentle bumps, but the kind that made coffee slosh and forced people to grip armrests. The Boeing 777 shuddered through unstable air autopilot, correcting in real time. Diana sat perfectly still. Feet flat on the floor, shoulder width apart. Back straight, core engaged, shoulders relaxed. Hands on the armrest, not gripping, just positioned. Ready. Samuel Brooks noticed. Sam sat in 18F 3 rows behind. 65, retired Air Force, 20 years flying F-16s. He'd pulled 9 Gs in a flat spin over Nevada and lived. He knew what a pilot looked like under stress. The woman in 7B was sitting like she'd just strapped into a Viper. Feet planted, your core tight, hands ready. You don't sit like that unless you fought a jet. Diana turned a page. Her right hand trembled, more visible now. She froze, staring at her fingers. Then pressed the hand flat against the book, holding it until the tremor stopped. Sam's eyes narrowed. Injury, neurological, or just nerves. In first class, Marcus was standing swaying from scotch and turbulence. I'm going up there. I'm talking to the captain. This is unacceptable. Page intercepted him. Sir, seatbelt sign is on. Sit down. I need to talk to someone who knows what they're doing. Marcus jabbed toward the cockpit. This ride is garbage, and I want that woman in 7B off this plane. He pointed at Diana. She's acting suspicious, writing notes, staring at the ceiling, probably casing for a hijacking. The cabin went silent. Every passenger stared at Diana. She didn't move. Just sat there, hands on her book, breathing slow. Vanessa's camera swung toward her. Oh my God, drunk guy thinks manual lady is a terrorist. This flight is insane. Greg leaned in. I mean, it is weird. What's she writing? Paige steadied herself. Mr. Harrington, all passengers were screened. There is no threat. Sit down before I call the captain. Marcus opened his mouth, then the plane dropped. 200 feet in 3 seconds. Stomachs lurched. Overhead, bins popped. A service cart slammed into the galley wall, bang. Screams erupted. The baby wailed. A woman prayed in Spanish. Diana's body moved on instinct. Feet pressed harder. Core tightened. Hands shot to armrests. Fingers spread, absorbing shock through forearms. Head stayed, level eyes forward. Textbook anti-G strain. Sam saw every detail. She didn't panic. She braced like she knew it was coming. The plane leveled. Evan's voice came over PA shaky. Sorry about that, folks. Rough air. Everything's under control. Stay seated. Diana knew better. She'd felt it clean, vertical, no roll. That wasn't turbulence. That was a microburst, a column of sinking air. And if they'd hit one, there were more ahead. She pulled out her notepad. Wrote, microburst encounter FL-370. Recommend descent FL-350 or lower. Cell tops likely FL-450 plus. Evasion south inadequate. Underlined the last sentence twice. Marcus was back in his seat, pale. Vanessa had stopped filming. Greg said nothing. Paige walked the aisle checking passengers. When she reached Diana, she paused. You okay, ma'am? Diana looked up. Fine. Paige glanced at the notepad. Saw the jargon FL-370 microburst cell tops. Words that didn't belong in a passenger's notes. You know a lot about flying. I read, Diana said. Flat. Dismissive. Paige wanted to ask more. Another jolt cut her off. She moved on. Diana closed the notepad, checked her watch, counted between lightning flashes. 1 Mississippi. 2 Crack. 1.6 miles. Still closing. She wrote, 8 men to cell center. Ice accretion risk critical. But she didn't tell anyone. In the cockpit, Sullivan pressed his palm to his temple. Sharp pain radiated from behind his left eye down his neck into his shoulder. He blinked hard. "Evan," he said, voice tight. "Take controls." Evan glanced over. "You okay, Captain?" "Just a headache. Need to splash water." "You sure we're about to—" "I'm fine," Sullivan snapped. Then softer. "Watch the altitude. Keep an eye on radar." Evan's hands moved to the yoke. "Yes, sir." Sullivan unbuckled, stood too fast. The cabin tilted. Or maybe just him. He caught himself steadied, walked to the lavatory. The cockpit door swung open for 3 seconds. Diana heard the exchange. Headache, vision problems, altitude-induced hypertension, or worse. She wrote, "Sullivan possible stroke precursor, monitor vitals," then closed her eyes, counted breaths, slow, even, because in 7 minutes, Captain James Sullivan was going to collapse. In 8 minutes, Evan Carter was going to realize he couldn't do this alone. In 9 minutes, someone was going to notice the woman in 7B. Outside St. Elmo's fire danced along the wings blue-white tendrils of electricity. Beautiful, deadly. Diana opened her eyes, watched the fire, counted. 7 minutes. The turbulence wasn't letting up. If anything, it was getting worse. The kind of sustained chop that made seasoned travelers nervous and first-timers reach for air sickness bags. The cabin had taken on that tense, watchful quality, everyone alert, waiting for the next jolt. Captain Sullivan's voice came over the PA again, slower this time, each word carefully pronounced like he was concentrating hard just to speak. Folks were deviating further south to avoid the worst of this system. Should have smoother air in about 15 minutes. Appreciate your patience. Diana's head snapped up. 15 minutes. She glanced at her notes. The storm cell was moving at 280 knots. Deviating south meant flying parallel to its leading edge, not away from it. They'd be in rough air for at least 40 minutes, possibly longer. He's disoriented. Cognitive impairment. Marcus was on his feet again, despite the seatbelt sign gripping seatbacks as he swayed toward the galley. "This is bullshit," he announced to the cabin. 15 minutes. We've been bouncing for 20 already." Page emerged from the galley, blocking his path. "Mr. Harrington, you need to sit down, now. I need to talk to the captain. This deviation is making it worse." Greg called out from 11A, emboldened by Marcus's volume. "He's right, you know. If we're in a northern hemisphere, cyclonic system deviating south puts us deeper into the warm sector. We should be climbing to $41,000 above the cell tops." Several passengers murmured agreement. Someone said, "Yeah, why aren't we climbing?" Diana's fingers tightened on her armrest. "Because at $41,000, you're in the heart of the ice accretion zone. The convective tops are pushing $45,000. You'd be flying into a frozen hell." But she said nothing, just watched, waited. Evan's voice came over the PA younger, less authoritative than Sullivan's. "Folks, we're maintaining current altitude per company procedures. The captain knows what he's doing." No, he doesn't, Diana thought. Not anymore. The plane lurched hard to the right. A woman screamed. Luggage shifted in the overhead bins with ominous creaking sounds. The baby in row 9 was wailing continuously now, a high-pitched sound of pure infant terror. Diana's body reacted before her mind caught up. Her feet pressed flat shoulder-width apart. Her spine straightened against the seat back, engaging her core. Her hands moved to the armrests, in that same ready position, fingers spread, not gripping, absorbing. It was muscle memory from thousands of hours in a cockpit. The body's automatic response to turbulence when you're the one flying. When you're responsible for keeping the aircraft under control. Samuel Brooks saw it again. This time he leaned forward, slightly studying her. The posture was unmistakable. This wasn't a nervous passenger bracing against fear. This was a pilot's stance. The way you sit when you're working the problem, not just enduring it. He caught his wife's hand. "Honey, see that woman in 7B? The one that angry man was yelling about? Yeah. Watch how she sits. Watch her hands." His wife looked, but didn't understand what she was seeing. Sam did. He'd flown with enough pilots to recognize the breed. The way they breathed through turbulence, slow, controlled counting. The way they positioned their bodies to stay connected to the aircraft's movements rather than fighting against them. She's counting, Sam realized, timing the intervals between jolts, building a pattern. Another violent shake. The cabin lights flickered and dimmed to amber again. This time they stayed dim. Diana's eyes tracked to the overhead panel, then to her watch. She wrote in her notepad, "Electrical fluctuation pattern consistent. 0.8 sec intervals. Possible generator load shed or lightning proximity 1 Marcus was back in his seat, strapped in, but still vocal. "This is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Paige, I want to file a formal complaint. Sir, I'll take your information once we're through this weather. I want it now. I want documentation that I objected to this captain's handling of..." The plane dropped again. Not as severe as before, but enough to cut Marcus off mid-sentence. His face went pale. For a moment he looked genuinely scared rather than just angry. In the sudden quiet that followed, a child's voice piped up from row 14. "Mommy, why is the airplane so angry?" "It's not angry, baby. It's just working hard." Diana's jaw tightened. Working hard. That's one way to put it. The plane was fighting. Fighting the storm. Fighting the deteriorating systems. Fighting against a captain whose brain was slowly starving for oxygen as an undiagnosed clot crept toward a critical vessel. She checked her watch again. 5 minutes. In the cockpit, something was wrong. Evan Carter had taken the controls 5 minutes ago, and Sullivan still hadn't come back. The lavatory call button had chimed 3 minutes ago. The captain should have returned by now. But the cockpit door remained closed. Evan glanced at the radar display. The storm cell ahead was massive painting in solid red and magenta. He'd been taught to avoid red. Everyone knew that. But Sullivan had set their course before leaving, and Evan was afraid to deviate without authorization. His hands were sweating inside his gloves. "Shannon Oceanic American 4047 Heavy." He called on the radio. His voice cracked slightly. He cleared his throat and tried again. "Request climb to flight level 390 to top weather." There was a pause. Then, "American 447 Shannon. Climb approved flight level 390. Advise when level." Evan pulled back gently on the yoke. The nose pitched up. The engine spooled throttles, advancing automatically to maintain airspeed. The altimeter began winding upward. FL 380, FL 385, FL 390. "Shannon American, 447 level, flight level, 390. Roger, 447, maintain." Evan exhaled. There. That was the right call. Get above the weather. Textbook procedure. In seat 7B, Diana's eyes snapped to the window. She felt the climb in her inner ear, that pressure shift that most passengers didn't consciously register. She glanced at her notepad, at the calculations she'd written 20 minutes ago. FL 390. Ice accretion critical zone. Anti-ice systems inadequate at convective cell edge. She looked up at the overhead panel at the air vents. Waited. 30 seconds later, she heard it. A faint change in the engine tone. A slight roughness, like someone had thrown a handful of gravel into a turbine. Then the cockpit call button chimed. Once. Twice. 3 times in rapid succession. Paige's face went pale. She grabbed the interphone. Diana couldn't hear the conversation, but she could read Paige's body language. The way she gripped the handset. The way her free hand came up to cover her mouth. When Paige hung up, she moved quickly down the aisle toward the cockpit, trying not to run, but moving faster than normal. She knocked on the door. Called out something. The door opened a crack. Through that crack for just 3 seconds, Diana heard Evan's voice. Higher pitched. Stressed. "I can't get him to respond." Tried knocking, need to force the lavatory. The door closed. Diana stood up, not quickly, not dramatically, just rose from her seat like she was heading to the bathroom. Her duffel bag was already under the seat in front of her. She'd positioned it there deliberately within reach. She pulled it out, slung it over one shoulder. "Ma'am," Paige materialized beside her, professional smile strained. "The seatbelt sign is—" "I know," Diana said quietly. "I need the lavatory." "Could you wait just a few?" A warning chime cut through the cabin. Sharp, insistent, the kind that made people's heads snap up. "Ice detected." The announcement came in that synthetic female voice that always sounded too calm for emergencies. "Ice detected on engine 1. Ice detected on engine 2. Evan's voice followed immediately on the PA, trying for calm and missing by a mile. Folks were experiencing some ice accumulation. Totally normal. Anti-ice systems are handling it. No cause for concern. But Diana heard what he wasn't saying. Heard it in the quarter-second pause before "totally normal." Heard it in the way his voice went up half an octave on "no cause for concern." The anti-ice isn't handling it. It can't. Not at 390 in a convective cell. He just flew us into a freezer. She moved toward the front of the cabin. Marcus's voice called after her. "Hey, where do you think you're going? Seatbelt sign is on." Diana didn't respond. Didn't even look back. When she passed Sam's row, he leaned out slightly. Their eyes met for half a second. He gave a tiny nod. "Go. Whatever you're doing, go." She reached the galley. Paige was there with another flight attendant conferring in urgent whispers. They turned when Diana approached. "Ma'am, you need to return to your—" Diana's right hand came up, pulling down the collar of her cardigan. Just slightly. Just enough to reveal the top of a scar on her collarbone. Thin white, 3 inches long. The kind you get from an ejection seat harness under high G load. Her voice was quiet, calm, absolute. "I need you to open that cockpit door, right now." Paige stared at the scar. Her training told her to deny access to the cockpit. Post 9/11 protocols were absolute. But something in this woman's eyes, something in the way she stood perfectly balanced, despite the turbulence, feet planted like she was rooted to the deck, made Paige hesitate. "Who are you?" Paige whispered. Before Diana could answer, the cockpit door burst open. Evan stumbled out, his face sheet white. "We can't get him out. The lavatory door's jammed from the inside. Captain Sullivan's not responding." "Did you try the emergency release?" Diana asked. Evan's head whipped toward her. Who are—" "The manual override. Red lever top right of the doorframe. Did you try it?" Evan blinked. Yes, it's not working. Something's blocking it from inside." Diana pushed past him into the cockpit. Evan grabbed her arm. "Wait, you can't just—" She stopped, turned. Looked at his hand on her arm, then up at his face. Her voice was flat. Absolute. "Let go." Something in her tone made him release immediately. Diana moved to the lavatory door, pressed her ear against it. Listened. Through the thin composite material, she could hear ragged breathing. Slow, irregular. The sound of someone losing consciousness. "He's collapsed against the door," she said. "Blocking the override lever. We need to force it." "Force it?" Paige's voice was shrill. "We can't break a door on a pressurized aircraft. It's an interior door, not load-bearing." Diana turned to Evan. "You have a crash axe in the cockpit. I can't authorize. I'm not asking for authorization. Crash axe, now." Evan's mouth opened, closed. He looked at Paige, who gave a tiny, helpless shrug. Then he ducked back into the cockpit and returned with a red-handled axe. Diana took it, positioned herself. "Stand back." 1 strike, 2. The third blow splintered the doorframe. She kicked it once hard and it gave way. Captain Sullivan was crumpled on the floor, wedged between the toilet and the door. His face was gray. His lips had a bluish tint. His eyes were half open, unseeing. Jesus, Evan breathed. Diana dropped to her knees, fingers going to Sullivan's carotid. Thready pulse, maybe 40 beats per minute. She tilted his head back, checking his airway. Clear, but his breathing was shallow. Is there a doctor on board? Evan shouted into the cabin. Already called, Paige said, shaking. She's coming. Dr. Helen Park appeared 30 seconds later, medical bag in hand, mid-50s, trim, efficient. She took one look at Sullivan and dropped beside Diana. Stroke, probable, Diana said. Onset approximately 8 minutes ago based on symptom progression. Left-sided weakness, aphasia vision, disturbance. Helen's eyes flicked to Diana, surprised. You medical? No, but I've seen it before. Diana stood backing out of the tiny space to give Helen room. He needs a hospital, soon. Evan was frozen in the cockpit doorway, staring at his unconscious captain. His hands were shaking. I should call dispatch. You should fly the airplane, Diana said quietly. Evan turned to her, really looked at her for the first time, saw past the cheap cardigan and the worn jeans, saw the way she stood, the way she'd moved through the emergency with zero hesitation, the vocabulary she'd used, symptom progression, aphasia load-bearing. Who are you? He asked again. Before Diana could answer, Marcus Harrington appeared at the galley entrance phone and hand filming. This is unbelievable. The captain's down and they're letting some random passenger give orders. He panned to Diana. You broke into the cockpit. That's a federal crime. Greg was right behind him. She assaulted a door with an axe. On a pressurized aircraft, she could have killed us all. Vanessa's live stream was already going viral. You guys, this is insane. Manual lady literally broke into the cockpit. The captain is unconscious. We might actually die. Diana ignored them all. She looked at Evan. You need to descend, right now. FL 350 minimum. The ice. I can't just descend without clearance, Evan's voice cracked. There are procedures I need to. A new sound cut through the argument. A deep, grinding vibration that everyone felt in their bones more than heard. The engine tone changed rougher, uneven. Diana's eyes went to the window. Through the darkness, she could see the engine cowling. Ice was building on the intake, irregular chunks distorting the airflow. Engine 1 compressor stall, she said. Not loud, not dramatic, just stating a fact. Evan's face went from white to gray. He lunged back into the cockpit, Diana right behind him. The instruments told the story, engine 1 N1 fluctuating, EGT climbing, vibration off the scale. Shut it down, Diana said. I can't shut down an engine without... Shut it down. Her voice was steel. You're 30 seconds from losing the turbine. Shut it down now, or you'll have an engine fire. Evan's hand hovered over the fuel control lever. His entire body was shaking. 1,200 hours, most of it in perfect weather. He'd practiced engine failures in the simulator, but this was real. This was 312 people whose lives depended on him making the right call. And this stranger, this woman in a Goodwill cardigan, was telling him to shut down an engine in the middle of a storm. His hand didn't move. Diana's right hand tremor, visible, now reached past him and pulled the fuel lever to cut off. Engine 1 spooled down. The vibration stopped. The cockpit went quiet, except for the rush of wind and the sound of Evan's panicked breathing. He couldn't finish the sentence. You can't. That's my decision. I'm the pilot in command. Diana met his eyes. Then command. Because in about 90 seconds, Engine 2 is going to do the same thing. Evan stared at the engine instruments. Diana was right. Engine 2 EGT was climbing. N1 starting to fluctuate. The ice was building faster now, choking both power plants. I need to declare an emergency, he said, reaching for the radio. His hand was shaking so badly he could barely key the mic. Shannon Oceanic American 447, heavy declaring emergency. Captain incapacitated dual-engine ice accretion requesting immediate descent and vectors to nearest suitable negative descent. Shannon's voice came back. Traffic below you heavy southbound at FL 330. Maintain FL 390. Stand by for routing. I can't maintain, Evan's voice broke. I'm losing both engines. Diana leaned over his shoulder, keying the PA without asking permission. Her voice was calm, measured, the voice of someone who'd done this before. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an emergency announcement. We've lost one engine to ice accumulation and are experiencing trouble with the second. We need to descend immediately. Secure all loose items. Flight attendants prepare the cabin for rapid descent and possible evacuation. The cabin erupted. Screams. Crying. Someone was praying loudly in Arabic. A man was yelling, "We're going to die," over and over. Marcus burst into the cockpit. "What the hell gives you the right? Get out." Diana said, not looking at him. "I'm a paying passenger. I have every right to know, get out." She turned. The look on her face made Marcus take an involuntary step back. "Or I will put you out. Your choice." Paige grabbed Marcus's arm. "Sir, you need to return to your seat, now." "She's not even crew. She's some random," Dr. Helen Park's voice cut through from the lavatory area. "I've got him stabilized, but he needs a trauma center within the hour. Stroke protocol. He won't survive much longer without intervention." Evan was on the radio again, voice desperate. "Shannon American 447, I have a medical emergency dual-engine failure imminent, and I'm declaring emergency authority. Descending to FL 350 immediately." American 447, negative. Evan switched off the radio, pushed the yoke forward, the nose pitched down. The plane descended through the ice-laden clouds at 2,000 feet per minute. Diana watched the altimeter spin, watched the airspeed build, watched Engine 2 EGT climb into the red. "You need to shut down Engine 2, she said quietly. "If I shut down both engines, we're a glider." Evan's voice was pure panic now. "We can't glide to Shannon from here. If you don't shut it down, it'll disintegrate. Then you'll have an engine fire, possible wing damage, and you'll definitely not make Shannon." Evan's hands were frozen on the yoke, paralyzed by fear, by the impossibility of the choice in front of him. Diana's hand moved to the fuel control lever for Engine 2. "Don't," Evan said. "Please, I need to think. There's no time to think." She pulled the lever. Engine 2 spooled down. The cockpit went eerily quiet. No engine noise, just wind. Just the whistle of air over the fuselage and the faint electrical hum of backup systems. They were a glider now. A 200-ton glider with 312 souls on board, dropping through a Category 4 hurricane with no power. Evan turned to Diana, face streaked with tears. "Who are you?" For the third time. But this time, it wasn't suspicion. It was desperation. It was a drowning man reaching for anything that might float. Before Diana could answer, Marcus's voice boomed from the cabin. "I demand to know who that woman is. She just shut down both engines. She's going to kill us all." Greg was shouting too. "Someone call the air marshal. She's hijacking the plane." Vanessa's live stream had 60,000 viewers now. "She shut down the engines, you guys. Both of them. We're literally falling out of the sky." Samuel Brooks stood up in 18F. His voice cut through the chaos calm, authoritative, with the weight of 20 years wearing eagles on his collar. "Everyone sit down and shut up. That woman knows what she's doing." "How do you know?" someone shouted back. Sam pointed at Diana. "Because I flew fighters for 2 decades, and I recognize a mill pilot when I see one. The way she moves, the way she thinks, the way she's not panicking." He looked directly at Marcus. "Unlike you. Now sit down before I make you sit down." Marcus's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Then he sat. But the damage was done. The seed of doubt had been planted. And as the plane descended through the blackness, engines silent with only the emergency batteries keeping the lights on, every passenger was asking the same question. Can she really save us? Or did we just let a stranger kill us all? Diana's right hand trembled against the instrument panel. She pressed it flat, hiding the weakness. 7 minutes to restart altitude. 5 minutes to get at least one engine back. 3 minutes after that, until we're too low to make Shannon. She looked at Evan. Have you ever done a dual-engine air restart? He shook his head, couldn't speak. Then you're about to learn. Diana's eyes swept the instrument panel with the efficiency of someone who'd spent thousands of hours staring at similar displays. Airspeed, 280 knots, and building. Altitude passing through FL 360, descending at 1,800 feet per minute. Vertical speed within limits, but barely. Hydraulic pressure system. A showing amber, 1,200 psi, when it should be $3,000. Your hydraulic A is degrading, she said, tapping the gauge. Evan looked. His face somehow got paler. It was fine 10 minutes ago. It was fine 10 minutes ago when you had engine-driven pumps running. Now you're on electrical backup only. System B is holding at 2,800, but it won't last. You've got maybe 12 minutes before you're in manual reversion. Manual reversion. Evan's voice was hollow. The sim never fails both engines and hydraulics simultaneously. Real life doesn't care what the sim taught you. Diana pointed to the overhead panel. You need to isolate System A now. Close the crossfeed shift all flight controls to System B only. Preserve what you have. Evan's hands moved automatically following her instructions. Switches flipped. An amber light went out. A green one illuminated. Good, Diana said. Now tell me your current fuel state. Evan's eyes darted to the fuel display. 22,000 pounds. Fuel flow? 0. Engines are shut down. Exactly. Which means you have exactly 22,000 pounds to work with for restart and approach. How far to Shannon? Evan fumbled with the FMS trying to get distance information. His hands were shaking too badly. Diana leaned past him, keyed in the airport code. The screen updated. 280 nautical miles, she read. Current ground speed, 310 knots. Wind component, 50-knot tailwind. The storm's pushing us. Diana did the math in her head. 54 minutes at current speed. But you'll slow down when you restart engines and configure for approach. Call it 60 minutes minimum. She pointed at the fuel gauge again. How much fuel do you need to restart one engine? I don't know. The checklist. Doesn't matter. What matters is you need fuel for restart, fuel for approach, fuel for missed approach if Shannon's below minimums, and fuel for alternate. Do you have an alternate filed? Evan pulled up the flight plan. Reykjavik. How far? 320 nautical? Diana shook her head. You don't have the fuel. Shannon's your only option. One approach, one chance. The weight of that statement settled over the cockpit like a lead blanket. Evan's breathing was rapid shallow. Diana recognized the signs of hyperventilation. Breathe, she said quietly. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. Do it. Evan tried, failed, tried again. His breathing slowed marginally. Diana keyed the radio back on. Shannon Oceanic American 447 heavy. We've experienced dual-engine flameout due to ice accretion. Currently descending through FL 340. Request priority handling and emergency equipment standing by Shannon. The controller's voice came back tense, but professional. American 447. Shannon copies dual flameout. Confirms souls on board and fuel remaining. 312 souls. 2,000 pounds fuel. We're attempting engine restart at FL 250. Roger 447. Be advised Shannon currently below minimums. Visibility, 1 mile ceiling, 400 feet, wind 290 at 48 knots, gusting 62. RVR runway 10 is 2,800 feet. Evan's face crumbled. Below minimums. I can't land in that. You don't have a choice, Diana said. Shannon's the only runway within glide range. But I've never landed in winds that high. Then I'll talk you through it. Diana's voice was steady. Absolute. But first, we need engines. Give me the engine restart checklist. Evan pulled out the quick reference handbook, fumbling with the pages. Diana took it from him, found the right page, placed it on the center console where they could both see it. Fuel selector crossfeed open. She read. Evan's hand moved to the overhead panel, flipped the switch. Crossfeed open. Ignition continuous. Continuous. Altitude passing FL 310. We wait until FL 250. Air density's too thin up here. The igniters won't light. Diana looked at the descent rate. 3 minutes. From the cabin, Marcus's voice carried forward. 3 minutes. 3 minutes until someone tell us what's happening. Paige appeared at the cockpit door. The passengers are panicking. They need to hear from someone. They need to know we're not going to die. Diana looked at Evan. You're the captain now. Tell them. I don't know what to say. Tell them the truth. We're attempting engine restart. We have a plan. We're going to get them on the ground safely. But what if I can't? Then you tell them anyway. Because hope is the only thing keeping this cabin from tearing itself apart. Evan reached for the PA with a shaking hand. His voice cracked on the first word. Ladies and gentlemen, First Officer Carter, Captain Sullivan is receiving medical attention. We've experienced temporary engine issues due to icing. We're descending to warmer air to restart. Please remain seated and calm. We'll have you on the ground soon. It was weak, unconvincing, but it was something. Diana checked the altimeter. FL 280, 2,000 feet to go. Her right hand tremored against the throttle quadrant. She pulled it back, tucked it under her left arm, hiding it. 2 minutes. FL 260, 1,000 feet to restart altitude. Diana's eyes never left the instruments. Airspeed steady at 290 knots. Descent rate 1,800 feet per minute. Outside air temperature climbing as they descended minus 40 Celsius at FL 310, now minus 28. The ice that had choked the engines was beginning to sublimate in the warmer air. 30 seconds, she said. Evan's hand hovered over the engine start switch. Which one first? Engine 2. It's shut down last, so it's had less time to cool. Better chance of a successful light-off. What if it doesn't light? Then we try engine 1. And if that doesn't light, we have about 8 minutes of glide time before we're too low to make Shannon, and we start looking for a place to ditch in the Atlantic. Evan's face went white. Ditch? Hopefully it won't come to that. FL 250 in 10 seconds. The altimeter wound down. FL 252, 251, 250. Now, Diana said. Engine start switch, engine 2. Evan flipped the switch. They both watched the N2 gauge. It sat at 0. Unmoving. 5 seconds. Nothing. 10 seconds. Still. Nothing. Come on, Evan whispered. Come on, come on, come on. 15 seconds. A flicker. N2 ticked up. 2%, 5%, 10%. It's lighting. Evan's voice was pure relief. Diana held up a hand. Don't celebrate yet. Watch EGT. The exhaust gas temperature gauge climbed. 600 degrees. 700. 800. The engine was lighting, but was it lighting correctly? 900 degrees. 1,000. EGT's high, Diana said. Hot start. If it goes above 950, you need to... The gauge peaked at 920, then began falling. N1 started climbing. 20%, 30, 40. The right side of the plane came alive with vibration. The cockpit filled with the beautiful, familiar roar of a working turbofan. Evan laughed, high-pitched, borderline hysterical. We did it. We got it back. One engine, Diana corrected. We need both. Start engine 1. Evan's hand moved to the switch. Flipped it. They watched the gauges. N2 climbed immediately this time. 5%, 10, 20. EGT shot up. 600, 800, 1,000. Come on, Evan muttered. 1,100, 1,200. That's too hot, Diana said. Abort the start. Now. Just a few more seconds. Now. Diana's hand shot past Evan's, flipping the switch to off. You keep running it that hot, you'll melt the turbine. We'll lose engine 1 permanently. The N2 gauge wound back down. The EGT slowly decreased. Evan slumped in his seat. I screwed it up. You didn't wait long enough between attempts. The engine's still heat-soaked from the first shutdown. We need to let it cool. How long? 2 minutes minimum. Evan checked the altitude. FL 230. We're still descending. I know. Level off at FL 200. We'll try again there. Evan pulled back on the yoke, adding power to engine 2. The nose came up. The descent rate decreased. At FL 200, they leveled off. The plane felt wrong. Asymmetric. One engine producing thrust, the other just dead weight hanging off the left wing. Evan had to hold constant right rudder to keep the nose pointed forward. Your feet are going to cramp, Diana said. Use rudder trim. Take the load off. Evan adjusted the trim wheel. The pressure on his leg eased. Diana checked her watch. 90 seconds more. Then we try engine 1 again. Behind them, Samuel Brooks had moved to an empty seat 3 rows forward, closer to the cockpit. He was listening to every word through the open door. When Diana mentioned waiting 90 seconds, he pulled out his phone and opened the stopwatch app. This woman knows exactly what she's doing, he thought. That's a test pilot's timing. That's someone who's restarted engines in flight before. Multiple times. He didn't know her name yet, didn't know her history, but he knew enough to know she was the only reason they were still in the air. The seconds ticked down. Time, Diana said. Try engine 1. Evan reached for the start switch, and the plane dropped out from under them. Wind shear, severe. The plane fell 800 feet in 4 seconds, a sickening drop that brought screams from the cabin and slammed Diana against her seatbelt. The single running engine howled as the autothrottle tried to compensate, adding power, but it wasn't enough. One engine couldn't fight this kind of downdraft. Evan froze, hands locked on the yoke, eyes wide with terror. Push forward, Diana barked. Don't fight the shear. Go with it. Pitch down 5 degrees. Add power slowly. But we're falling. If you pull up now, you'll stall. Pitch down now. Evan forced his hands forward. The nose dropped. The airspeed increased. After 3 endless seconds, they punched through the bottom of the shear. The descent stopped. The plane stabilized. Evan was breathing like he'd just run a marathon. How did you know to... Later. Start engine 1. Now. Before we hit another shear. Evan's shaking hand moved to the switch. Flipped it. N2 climbed. 10%, 20, 30. EGT 600 degrees. 700, 800, 900. It hung there at 950 for an agonizing 5 seconds. Then began falling. N1 started climbing. Both engines were running. The cockpit filled with the sound of twin turbofans spooling up to cruise power. It was the most beautiful sound Evan had ever heard. Engine stabilized, he said, voice cracking. We're actually flying again. Diana nodded once. Good. Now request vectors to Shannon and get me current weather. Evan was reaching for the radio when the hydraulic alarm sounded. A harsh buzzer that made them both jump. Hydraulic system a fail. Hydraulic system B, pressure low. Diana's eyes shot to the hydraulic synoptic display. System A was at 0 psi. System B had dropped from 2800 to 1400 in 30 seconds, falling fast. No, Evan whispered. No, no, no. Not now. We just got the engines back. We can't... How long to Shannon? Diana cut him off. 42 minutes. System B's losing 100 psi per minute. At that rate, you'll be in manual reversion in 14 minutes. You'll be hand flying a 777 with no hydraulic assist for the last 28 minutes of this flight. I can't hand fly a 777. Evan's voice went up an octave. Nobody can. The control forces are too high. I'll need both hands on the yoke just to turn. I can't. Then I'll handle the radios. I'll handle the gear. I'll handle everything else. You focus on flying. Marcus's voice boomed from behind them. Excuse me. You'll handle the radios. Who the hell do you think you are? Diana didn't turn around. Sir, return to your seat. I will not. You've been giving orders since the moment you broke into this cockpit. You shut down our engines. You nearly killed us with that wind shear maneuver. And now you're telling a certified pilot what to do, like you have some kind of authority. Greg appeared beside Marcus. He's right. We have a right to know who you are, credentials, name. Why should we trust you? Vanessa's live stream was up to 120,000 viewers now. So the mysterious woman who shut down the engines is apparently flying the plane now, and nobody knows who she is. This is literally insane. Diana's right hand was trembling visibly now. She couldn't hide it anymore. The stress, the adrenaline, the physical effort of the last 20 minutes, it was all catching up. Marcus saw the tremor, pointed at it. Look, her hand is shaking. She can't even hold steady. And you're going to let her land this plane. More passengers were crowding the galley, now trying to see into the cockpit, trying to understand what was happening. The fear and confusion were building toward mob hysteria. I demand a vote, Marcus shouted. Everyone who thinks this woman should be removed from the cockpit, raise your hand. 20 hands went up, then 30, then 40. Diana looked at Evan, waited for him to defend her, to tell them she was the only reason they were alive. Evan's mouth opened, closed. He looked at the crowd, at Marcus's angry face, at Vanessa's camera, at the sea of terrified passengers, and said nothing. Diana stood, slowly. Her right hand trembled against the throttle quadrant as she used it for support. You want me gone? She said quietly. Fine. But understand this. Evan has never hand-flown a heavy jet in manual reversion. He's never landed in 60-knot crosswinds. He's never done a single engine approach to minimums. If I leave this cockpit, your chances of survival drop to about 20%. She looked at Evan. Your call, First Officer Carter. Am I staying or going? Evan stared at her trembling hand, at the exhaustion in her eyes, at the 20 years of experience he didn't have and desperately needed. And then he looked at Marcus, at the crowd, at the camera. He said nothing. Diana picked up her duffel bag, slung it over her shoulder, stepped toward the cockpit door. Wait! Samuel Brooks pushed through the crowd, stood in front of Marcus. She stays. You don't have authority here. Marcus spat. Neither do you. But I know what I'm looking at. That woman is military, combat trained. She's done this before. Maybe not in a 777, but in something equally unforgiving. And right now, she's the only person on this plane qualified to get us on the ground alive. How do you know? Someone shouted. 20 years flying fighters. I recognize the breed, the way she moves, the way she thinks, the timing, the decisiveness. She's not guessing. She knows. Marcus stepped closer to Sam, aggressive. I paid for this flight. I have a right to... Sam's voice dropped to something cold and flat. Sit. Down. Or I'll put you down. Your choice. Marcus backed off. But the damage was done. The seed of doubt had been planted. Half the cabin wanted Diana gone. The other half was too terrified to speak. Diana looked at Evan one more time. He still said nothing. She stepped out of the cockpit. The door closed behind her with a final heavy thunk. Inside, Evan stared at the instruments, at the hydraulic pressure dropping, at the altimeter, at the distance to Shannon. 41 minutes? Alone. Evan's frozen. System B is failing. Shannon's 41 minutes away through a hurricane, and the only person who knows how to land this plane just walked out. If you were in his seat, knowing what you know, now would you call her back or trust your training? Drop your answer below, because what happens in the next 60 seconds decides whether 312 people live or die. Diana stood in the galley duffel bag over her shoulder while the mob watched her with a mixture of fear and triumph. Marcus was smirking. Vanessa was still filming. The baby in row 9 was screaming. Behind her, the cockpit door opened. Evan stood there, face pale, eyes red. "Wait!" Diana turned slowly. Evan's voice cracked. "I can't do this alone." Marcus stepped forward. "You can call dispatch. Get a supervisor on the radio. Let professionals handle. She is a professional." Evan's shout cut through the cabin. "I don't know who she is yet, but she's saved us 3 times already. The wind shear, the engine restart, the hydraulic isolation. I couldn't have done any of that." He looked at Diana. "Please, come back." Diana didn't move. Her right hand trembled at her side. "Your passengers voted. You stayed silent. I was wrong." Evan's voice dropped. "I was scared. I'm still scared. But I'm more scared of trying to land this plane without you than I am of them." He gestured at the crowd. "So I'm asking. Please." Diana looked past him into the cockpit. The hydraulic gauge was visible, System B at 100 psi, dropping. She walked past Evan without a word, sat down in the right seat, pulled the seatbelt tight across her chest. "Close the door," she said. "Lock it. Nobody else comes in." Evan sealed the cockpit. The crowd's protests were muffled now, irrelevant. Diana keyed the radio. "Shannon Oceanic American 447, heavy. Resuming emergency procedures. Request current approach minimums and wind conditions." American 447 Shannon. Visibility now 3/4 mile, ceiling 300 feet. Wind 280 at 50, gusting 65. Runway 10, RVR 2,000 feet. Below minimums for standard approach. "Copy, Shannon. We'll take whatever you've got. 447 is declaring emergency authority. 1 approach, 1 chance. We need it." There was a pause. Then, "American 447, understand you're taking the approach regardless of minimums." "Affirmative. We don't have fuel for alternate. This is Shannon or the Atlantic. Your choice which one we aim for." Another pause. Longer. Then a different voice, older, weighted with authority. "American 447. Heavy, this is Shannon Tower Supervisor. Winds are beyond aircraft limits. We cannot authorize. I'm not asking for authorization." Diana's voice was steel. "I'm telling you we're coming. Have equipment standing by. 447 out." She released the mic, looked at Evan. "Pull up the ILS approach plate for runway 10. I need to see the profile." Evan's hands moved to the display. The approach plate appeared a complex diagram of altitudes, distances, and obstacle clearances. Diana studied it for 10 seconds, committed it to memory. "Okay, here's what's going to happen. System B will fail in approximately 12 minutes. When it does, you'll be hand flying with manual reversion. The control forces will be triple normal. Your arms will burn. You'll want to quit. You won't." "Understood. Understood. I'll handle everything else. Radio, gear, flaps, fuel. You focus on one thing, only keep the nose pointed where I tell you. Can you do that?" Evan swallowed hard. "Yes." "Good. Because if you can't, we die. All of us." Shannon American 447 requesting confirmation of emergency equipment status. American 447, all equipment standing by. Fire medical crash recovery. We're ready for you. Copy. 447 is 31 miles out, beginning initial descent. Diana paused. "Shannon, I need to verify pilot and command qualification for your records." Evan glanced at her, surprised. She hadn't mentioned this. American 447, go ahead with PIC information. Diana's hand moved to her duffel bag, pulled out a small metal object. A dog tag. Worn brass chain, broken edges, smoothed from years of handling. She held it up to the dim cockpit light, reading the stamped letters. Shannon Pilot in command is Lieutenant Commander Diana Reeves, United States Navy retired. Service number November 932 Foxtrot, Zulu. Authorization code Raven 6 Actual. Dead silence on the frequency. Evan stared at her. You're Navy. Diana ignored him, waiting for Shannon's response. Finally, American 447 Shannon, stand by for verification. More silence. Diana could hear keyboard clicks in the background, someone searching databases. Evan's voice was barely a whisper. Lieutenant Commander, that's 04. You were a senior officer. Diana said flatly. Past tense. Doing what? Flying. What did you fly? Diana's jaw tightened. Does it matter? It matters to me. I need to know if you can. I can. Her tone cut like a blade. That's all you need to know. The radio crackled. A new voice, American accent. Military precision. Raven 6, this is Tango Lima Foxtrot Actual. Confirm authentication protocol, Foxtrot Tango Niner. Diana's eyes closed for a brief moment. When she opened them, something had changed in her expression. Recognition. And something else. Something painful. Tango Lima Foxtrot. Actual Raven 6 confirms Foxtrot Tango Niner. Voice authentication. The hawk flies at midnight. The nest is cold. Copy Raven 6. Authentication confirmed. Stand by. Evan looked lost. What just happened? Military verification, Diana said. They're checking if I'm who I say I am. Who's Tango Lima Foxtrot? Someone I used to know. The radio again. Shannon's tower supervisor tone completely different now. Respectful. American 447, Heavy Shannon Tower. Your pilot credentials are confirmed through U.S. Air Force Liaison. Lieutenant Commander Reeves, we have your service record. USS Eisenhower, 2005. Hurricane Katrina. Single-engine emergency landing. A pause. Ma'am, it's an honor. You're cleared for any approach you choose. Priority handling. The field is yours. Evan's mouth fell open. You landed on an aircraft carrier. In a hurricane. Diana's hand moved to the throttles. 30 years ago. Different plane, different ocean. Same principle, put it down without killing anyone. What were you flying? Diana pulled the dog tag chain over her head, hung it on the instrument panel where the light caught the engraving. Not just her name and service number. Below that, in smaller letters, FA-18C Hornet. VFA 87. Fighter jets, Evan breathed. You flew fighter jets off carriers. Not anymore. Diana's voice was hollow. Now I fly middle seat economy, and I read manuals that used to be my job to write. Samuel Brooks's voice came through the cracked cockpit door. He'd moved even closer, was practically standing in the galley. I knew it. Viper stance, carrier timing. Your boat qualified. That's why you knew the wind shear call. That's why you shut down the engines without hesitation. Diana didn't acknowledge him. Just keyed the mic. Shannon American 447. Beginning descent checklist. Request vectors for ILS 10. American 447. Turn left, heading 090. Descend and maintain 4,000 feet. You're number 1, no delays. The hydraulic alarm buzzed again. System B pressure. Low 800 psi. Diana looked at Evan. Manual reversion in 4 minutes. Get ready. The radio crackled with a different frequency guard, 121.5, the emergency channel monitored by every aircraft and military installation in the North Atlantic. Raven 6 Tango Lima Foxtrot, actual on guard. How copy? Diana reached for the frequency selector, switched to guard. Tango Lima Foxtrot Raven 6, copy you 5x5. Diana. The voice softened, lost its military edge. became personal. "It's Dan Richardson. Colonel now. I heard you were on that flight. Couldn't believe it when Shannon called." Diana's hand tightened on the yoke. "Colonel, been a while. 15 years. Last time was Eisenhower, day after you brought that Hornet back on one engine. You disappeared after that. Medical discharge, they said. Nobody would tell me why. Not important now. Maybe not. But I need you to know what you did that day saved 4 pilots waiting for medevac. The deck was too rough for the helo. If you hadn't blocked it with your aircraft, they'd have died." A pause. "I was one of them. Shrapnel in my leg. Bleeding out. You saved my life." Evan was listening, eyes wide. Diana said nothing. "I'm inbound from Reykjavik with 2 F-15s. Richardson continued. "We'll escort you in. Visual guidance if you need it. And Diana Shannon's reporting winds 65 knots gusting. That's beyond 777 limits. But I've seen you land a Hornet and worse. If anyone can do this, it's you. Appreciate the vote of confidence, but this isn't a Hornet. It's a 500,000-pound bus with no hydraulics. You'll figure it out. You always do." Richardson's voice carried absolute certainty. "Shannon Tower, this is Comet Lead. I'm vouching for Lieutenant Commander Reeves. Whatever she needs, you give it. Fuel priority, extended runway foam, anything. She's got 312 souls depending on her, and she will not let them down. I've flown with her. I know." The tower supervisor responded immediately. "Comet Lead Shannon Tower copies. American 447 has absolute priority. All other traffic is being rerouted." Diana exhaled slowly. The weight of Richardson's endorsement settled over the frequency. Every controller, every pilot monitoring guard just heard a USAF colonel stake his reputation on her. Evan's voice was quiet. "He flew with you. Long time ago, different world. He trusts you completely. He shouldn't. I'm not the same pilot I was." Diana held up her right hand. The tremor was visible constant now. That didn't exist 15 years ago. "I could hold 6 Gs for 3 minutes without shaking. Now I can barely hold a coffee cup steady." Evan watched the hand, then looked at the instruments. At the hydraulic gauge reading 600 psi and falling. "But you know what you're doing," he said. "That's what matters. Knowing and doing are different things. You're about to find out how different." The hydraulic alarm buzzed again. "System B, pressure low. 400 psi. 2 minutes to manual reversion," Diana said. "Get your feet on the rudder pedals, both hands on the yoke. When it kicks in, you'll feel it. Hydraulic system. B, fail." The alarm was louder this time, more insistent. The cockpit lights flickered as backup electrical systems kicked in. Evan felt it immediately. The yoke went from normal resistance to concrete. He pulled gently to adjust, pitch it barely moved. He pulled harder. His arms burned. "Jesus," he gasped. I can barely move it." "That's manual reversion," Diana said calmly. "No hydraulic assist, just cables and pulleys. It takes real force now. Use your core, not just your arms. Push with your legs against the footrest." Evan repositioned, engaged his whole body. The yoke moved grudgingly. The plane responded, but sluggishly. Everything was delayed, heavy, like flying through syrup. "How am I supposed to land like this?" His voice cracked. "Same way they did before hydraulics existed. Muscle and timing." Diana keyed the radio. "Shannon American 447. We've lost all hydraulics. Manual reversion confirmed. Request long final no-speed restrictions. We need time to configure." American 447, Shannon copies manual reversion. You're cleared straight in ILS 1030-mile final. Descend at pilot discretion. Wind now 300 at 58, gusting 70. 70 knots. The number hung in the cockpit like a death sentence. Evan's arms were already shaking from the control forces. 70 knots is 43 knots direct crosswind component. I know. Diana pulled out her notepad. Did rapid calculations. 777 max demonstrated crosswind is 35 knots. We're 8 knots over limits. So we can't land. We don't have a choice. Shannon's the only runway in range. From the cabin, Marcus's voice carried forward loud and panicked. Why are we descending so slowly? Why can't I feel the hydraulics? Something's wrong. Someone tell us what's happening. Page tried to calm him. Failed. More passengers were shouting now. The panic was spreading like fire. Diana switched the PA on. Her voice cut through the chaos. Calm, authoritative, undeniable. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant Commander Reeves, we've lost hydraulic systems. The aircraft is controllable, but requires manual inputs. This is difficult, but not impossible. I've done this before in military aircraft. We're 22 miles from Shannon, landing in approximately 11 minutes. Weather is poor high winds, low visibility. It will not be smooth. It will not be comfortable. But we will get down safely. She paused. Let that sink in. Here's what I need from you. Stay seated. Stay belted. Stay silent. The cockpit crew needs to focus. If you panic, you make our job harder. If you trust us, you help us save you. Your choice. The cabin went quiet. Not calm, but compliant. Even Marcus shut up. Evan fought the yoke, trying to maintain altitude. His forearms were burning. 11 minutes of this, I can't hold it that long. You will. Because the alternative is ditching in the Atlantic at night in 70-knot winds. You want that? No. Then hold it. Shannon 447 is configuring for approach. Request descent to 2,000 feet. American 447 descend and maintain 2,000. You're 12 miles from the outer marker. Diana reached for the gear lever. Gear down. Evan's eyes went wide. Already we're still 12 miles out. Manual gear extension takes time, and I need to see if they lock. She pulled the lever. The landing gear began extending, slowly, manually, driven by gravity and springs instead of hydraulics. The nose gear indicator showed red. Unlocked. 10 seconds. Still red. 20 seconds. Still red. Evan's breathing accelerated. If the nose gear doesn't lock, it will. Diana's voice was stone. Give it time. 30 seconds. The indicator turned green. All 3 gear locked. Down and safe. Diana exhaled. She just needed patience. But Evan was staring at the airspeed. We're too slow. We're losing speed with the gear down and no hydraulics for the auto throttle. Diana's hand moved to the throttles, pushed them forward manually. I've got power. You focus on pitch and heading. The plane lumbered toward Shannon like a wounded bird. Manual reversion, 70-knot crosswinds, below minimums, 1 approach, 1 chance. And in the cabin, 312 people who moments ago wanted Diana gone were now praying she could do the impossible. Again. American 447, you're 8 miles from the outer marker. Localizer alive. Glide slope coming active in 30 seconds. Diana's eyes scanned the instruments. Airspeed, 180 knots. Altitude, 2,000 feet. Sync rate, 800 feet per minute. The autopilot was offline, everything manual now. Evan was fighting the yoke with both hands, sweat pouring down his face. Flaps 10, Diana ordered. Evan reached for the flap lever with his right hand. The yoke immediately tried to roll left. He grabbed it back with both hands, overcorrected right. The plane wobbled. I can't let go, Evan gasped. The control forces, I've got it. Diana's hands shot to the yoke, held it steady. Flaps, now. Evan pulled the lever. The flaps extended mechanically slowly without hydraulic assist. The plane shuddered as drag increased. Flaps 10 set, Evan said, grabbing the yoke again. Diana's right hand was trembling visibly now. She pulled it back, tucked it under her left arm. Localizers alive. Turn 5 degrees right. Intercept heading 095. Evan heaved the yoke right. The plane turned with agonizing slowness. His arms screamed. Through the windscreen, the runway lights were invisible. Just black clouds, rain, and the occasional flash of lightning, flying blind into a maelstrom. "Glide slope alive," Diana said. "Start descent. Target 700 feet per minute." Evan pushed forward. Too much. The nose dropped hard. Sink rate jumped to 1,200 feet per minute. "Pull back too steep," Evan hauled back. Overcompensated. The nose came up too far. Sink rate dropped to 200. "Smooth inputs." Diana's voice was sharp. "Small corrections. You're over-controlling." "I can't feel it." Evan's voice broke. "With no hydraulics, I can't feel what the plane's doing." Diana grabbed his shoulder, squeezed hard. "Look at me. Look at me." Evan's wild eyes met hers. "You can do this," she said, voice dropping to something calm, certain. "Stop fighting the airplane. Stop trying to muscle it. Small inputs. Let it settle. Feel the momentum. You're flying a ship, not a fighter. Give it time to respond." Evan's breathing slowed fractionally. He nodded. "Pitch down 2 degrees. Gently." Evan pushed forward. Slowly this time. The nose dropped. Sink rate stabilized at 700 feet per minute. "Good. Hold that. Don't touch anything else." American 447, you're on localizer and glide slope. Looking good. 6 miles to threshold. The wind hit them like a fist. The plane lurched left, then right. Evan fought to keep the wings level. His arms were on fire. "Steady," Diana said. "Let the wind push you. Don't fight every gust. Ride it." Another gust. The plane yawed 30 degrees right. Evan hauled it back left. "You're chasing it," Diana barked. "Stop chasing small corrections." The altimeter unwound. 1,500 feet, 1,200, 1,000. "Flaps 20, Diana ordered. She grabbed the yoke. Evan pulled the lever. More drag, more shuddering. The plane felt like it was tearing itself apart. "Decision height is 200 feet, Diana said. "If we don't see the runway by then, we go missed approach." "We don't have fuel for missed approach." "I know, which means we see the runway. No other option." 800 feet. 600 feet. Still, nothing but black and rain. 400 feet. Evan's voice was a whisper. "I don't see it. Diana, I don't see it." 300 feet. Diana leaned forward, eyes locked outside, searching, waiting. 250 feet. "There!" Diana pointed. 11 o'clock, approach lights. A faint string of white lights materialized through the rain. The runway threshold beyond them. Barely visible, but there. "I see it," Evan breathed. "Good. Now listen carefully." Diana's voice was steel. "At 50 feet, I'm taking control. You're exhausted. Your arms are shot. I'll handle the landing. You back me up on throttles and callouts only." "Understood." "You can't fly with that tremor." "I've landed worse with worse. Trust me. Do you trust me?" Evan looked at her. At the trembling hand she'd hidden for the entire flight. At the absolute certainty in her eyes. "Yes." 200 feet. The wind shear hit, sudden, violent. The plane dropped like an elevator cable snapped. 150 feet in 2 seconds. Power, full power. Diana's hand slammed the throttles to the firewall. The engines roared. The descent slowed. But they were low. Dangerously low. 50 feet. Diana's hands went to the yoke. "I have control." "You have control," Evan echoed. Diana's right hand tremor and all gripped the yoke. Her left hand on the throttles. Her feet on the rudder pedals. She felt the plane. All 500,000 pounds of it. The wind. The weight. The momentum. And for the first time in 15 years, she wasn't flying a middle seat in economy. She was flying. 40 feet, Evan called. Diana pulled the throttles back slightly. Let the plane settle. 30 feet. The runway lights rushed up. 20 feet. Diana flared, pulled back gently. The nose pitched up. 10 feet. The tremor in her right hand was violent now, but her grip was sure. The main wheels kissed the runway. A slight bounce, then firm contact. Diana pushed the yoke forward. The nose wheel slammed down. "Thrust reversers," she called. "No hydraulics," Evan shouted back. "Then full brakes, everything you've got." Evan's feet mashed the brake pedals. The plane shuddered, tires screaming on wet pavement. They hurtled down the runway at 140 knots, 120, 100. The end of the runway was coming fast, 80 knots, 60, 40. The plane rolled to a stop with 800 feet of runway remaining. Silence, just the sound of rain hammering the windscreen and Evan's ragged breathing. Diana released the yoke. Her right hand was shaking so badly she couldn't stop it. She pressed it against her thigh, waiting for the tremor to subside. "We're down," Evan whispered. "We're actually down." Diana keyed the radio. "Shannon Tower, American 447, heavy is on the deck. We'll need a tug. No hydraulics for taxi." "Roger, 447. Emergency vehicles are rolling. Welcome to Ireland, Commander. Hell of a landing." The cabin erupted. Not screams this time. Cheers. Sobbing. Applause that started in the back and rolled forward like thunder. Diana didn't move. Just sat in the right seat, hands in her lap, waiting for the tremor to stop. Evan unbuckled, turned to her. That was... He couldn't find words. "Thank you. For coming back. For not letting me kill us. You didn't kill anyone. You held it together when it mattered. Only because you told me how." The cockpit door opened. Dr. Helen Park stood there, tears streaming down her face. "Captain Sullivan's stable. The medics are taking him now. He'll make it." She looked at Diana. "Because of you. All of this. Because of you." Behind her, Samuel Brooks pushed forward. His weathered face was split by a grin. "Lieutenant Commander, I knew it. 20 years flying Vipers, and I've never seen anyone handle a crosswind landing like that. Not in a fighter. Definitely not in a 777 with no hydraulics." Diana finally looked up. "You flew F-16s. Nellis, then Ramstein. Retired '09. Sam extended his hand. "Major Samuel Brooks. It's an honor, ma'am." Diana shook it. Her hand still trembled. Sam noticed, but didn't comment. Page appeared, followed by the other flight attendants. "Commander, the passengers want to thank you. They're asking..." "No." Diana stood, grabbed her duffel bag. "No ceremonies, no speeches. I just want to go home." "But you saved..." "Evan saved us. Captain Sullivan trained him. Dr. Park kept the captain alive. You kept the cabin calm. Everyone did their part." Diana's voice was firm. "I just flew the plane, that's all." She moved toward the exit. The cabin was still erupting with applause. When passengers saw her emerge, the noise doubled. People were standing, reaching out to touch her, thanking her, crying. Diana kept her eyes forward, kept walking. Marcus Harrington stood in the aisle. Their eyes met. He opened his mouth, closed it. Then quietly, "I was wrong. I'm sorry." Diana nodded once, kept walking. Vanessa was there too, phone down for the first time. I posted some things during the flight. I'll delete them. I'm sorry." "Don't delete them," Diana said. "Let people see what panic looks like. Maybe next time they'll trust the professionals instead of the mob." She reached the door. The air stairs were rolling up. Rain was hammering down. Lightning split the sky. Colonel Dan Richardson was waiting at the bottom, rain-soaked 2 F-15s, visible on the taxiway behind him. "Diana," he saluted, sharp, military. "Permission to say it's damn good to see you fly again." Diana didn't salute back, hadn't earned that right in 15 years. "Dan, thanks for the escort." "Least I could do. You saved my life once. Now you saved 312 more. He gestured to a hangar. "Press is gathering. FAA wants a statement. American Airlines CEO is flying in. They want to give you a medal, reinstate your flying status, whole 9 yards. Diana shouldered her duffel bag. "I'm going to my hotel. I'm going to sleep for 12 hours. Then I'm going to fly home. Middle seat economy. just like I came. Diana, you can't just walk away from this. The whole world saw what you did. Vanessa's live stream has 2 million views already. You're a hero. I'm a retired pilot who happened to be on a plane when things went wrong. That's all. She started walking toward the terminal. The Navy wants you back, Richardson called after her. Test pilot program. They'll waive the medical. Full reinstatement. Diana stopped, turned. Rain streamed down her face. I can't hold a coffee cup without shaking Dan. I can't grip a pencil for more than 30 seconds. You think I can fly a fighter? You just landed a 707 with no hydraulics in 70-knot crosswinds. Once. I did it once. Adrenaline. Necessity. That's not the same as being fit for duty. She held up her right hand. The tremor was visible even from 20 feet away. This doesn't go away. It never goes away. So you're just going to disappear again, fly middle seat, and read manuals you wrote. Diana smiled. Sad, tired. Maybe. Or maybe I'll do something else. But whatever I do it as Diana Reeves, civilian, not lieutenant commander, not Raven 6. That person died 15 years ago. She turned and walked into the terminal. Behind her, 312 passengers were deplaning. Alive. Safe. Because of the woman in the Goodwill cardigan, they'd almost voted off the plane. The woman nobody believed was anyone at all. Diana sat alone in the airport hotel room. 3:00 a.m. Rain still hammering the window, her duffel bag on the chair, the dog tag on the nightstand chain coiled around it like a sleeping snake. She stared at her right hand. The tremor was still there, fainter now, but persistent. A permanent reminder. USS Eisenhower, August 29th, 2005. Hurricane Katrina. The memory came unbidden, sharp as broken glass. She'd been 28, lieutenant, flying her 32nd combat mission off the carrier. Just another day until the hydraulic line ruptured at 15,000 feet. System A failed immediately. System B degrading fast. The choice was simple. Eject over the Gulf of Mexico. Get picked up by search and rescue in an hour. Standard procedure. Safe. But the carrier deck was full. 4 wounded pilots, Dan Richardson among them, waiting for medevac. The helo couldn't land until the deck was clear, and the storm was closing fast. If you eject, they wait. If they wait, they die. So she didn't eject. She brought the FA-18 back on one engine, minimal hydraulics in 40-knot crosswinds, with the carrier deck pitching 18 degrees. The LSO was screaming at her to wave off. The CAG ordered her to eject. She ignored them both. The landing was hard. The tailhook caught the number 3 wire, but the deceleration snapped her forward against the harness so violently it cracked her collarbone and fractured her wrist. The impact compressed a nerve. Permanent damage. The tremor started 3 days later. The Navy gave her a medal, then a medical discharge. Combat effectiveness concerns. Translation. You can't hold a stick steady anymore. You're done. Dan Richardson visited her in the hospital. Told her she'd saved his life. Told her she was a hero. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt broken. For 15 years, she'd hidden, flew middle seat, read manuals, stayed invisible, because invisible meant safe. Invisible meant nobody expected anything from her. Invisible meant she didn't have to prove she was still worth something. Until tonight. Tonight she'd proven it. To Evan, to the passengers, to Richardson, to herself. But the tremor was still there. And it always would be. Diana picked up the dog tag, ran her thumb over the engraved letters. LT CDR D Reeves, USN. A knock at the door. She didn't move. Hoped whoever it was would leave. Another knock. Diana, it's Dan. I know you're awake. Diana sighed, stood open the door. Richardson stood there still in his flight suit, rain-soaked. He held out a folder. Reinstatement papers, already signed by the CNO. You just need to accept. Diana looked at the folder. Didn't take it. I can't fly fighters anymore, Dan. So don't fly fighters. Fly transports. Fly trainers. Consult on test programs. There are a dozen things you can do that don't require perfect hands. I don't want to be the pilot they assign to a desk because she's broken. You're not broken. You're experienced. There's a difference. Richardson's voice softened. Diana, you just saved 312 people with a tremor that would disqualify most pilots from even boarding a plane. That's not broken. That's extraordinary. Diana looked at him, at the certainty in his eyes, the belief. I'll think about it, she said finally. That's all I ask. Richardson turned to leave, then paused. By the way, there's a call for you. Secure line. They said it's urgent. Who? Richardson smiled. You'll find out. Diana's phone hadn't stopped ringing. American Airlines, FAA, Navy, media outlets. She ignored them all. But she couldn't ignore the letter that arrived at her Portland apartment, handwritten, from Evan Carter. Commander Reeves, I'm writing this from the hospital where Captain Sullivan is recovering. He's going to make it. Full recovery expected. He wanted me to thank you. I wanted to thank you too. Not just for the landing. For teaching me what it means to be a pilot. It's not about the hours in the logbook or the ratings on your license. It's about what you do when everything goes wrong and people are depending on you. I'm requesting assignment to the training department. I want to teach other pilots what you taught me, how to think under pressure, how to trust your skills even when you're terrified. The tremor doesn't define you, your choices do, and you chose to save us. Thank you, Evan Carter, First Officer. Diana folded the letter, put it in her duffel bag next to the dog tag. The FAA investigation concluded in 4 days, fastest turnaround in history. Lieutenant Commander Diana Reeves acted in accordance with emergency authority granted to pilot in command during life-threatening situations. Her actions were consistent with accepted practices for dual engine failure and hydraulic system degradation. No violations found. Commendation recommended. American Airlines offered her a position Senior Safety Consultant, Emergency Procedures Development. 6-figure salary. She could write the manual she'd been reading for 15 years. She was considering it. The Navy's offer sat on her kitchen table, unsigned. But there was a second letter underneath it, from the Secretary of Defense. Commander Reeves, in recognition of your actions on American Airlines Flight 447 and in consideration of your prior service to the nation, the Department of Defense is authorizing the creation of a new position, Civilian Aviation Crisis Response Liaison. This position would involve training commercial pilots in military emergency procedures, developing civilian-military coordination protocols, and serving as on-call advisor for aviation emergencies. No cockpit duty required. No medical waiver needed. Just your expertise, your experience, and your willingness to prevent future tragedies. Your country needs you, Commander. But this time on your terms. Respectfully, signature. Diana read it 3 times, a way back in. But not the way she'd left. Something new. Something that worked with her limitations, not against them. Marcus Harrington donated $2 million to veterans organizations supporting injured pilots. Publicly apologized in a viral video. Vanessa deleted her original livestream, posted a new video titled, I Was Wrong About Everything. The video had 5 million views. She'd become an advocate for disability awareness and unconscious bias training. Greg Tomlinson enrolled in an actual flight training program, stopped pretending he knew things he didn't. The Anderson family from row 9 sent Diana a photo, their twins holding a hand-drawn picture of an airplane with "Thank you, Commander Reeves" in crayon. Samuel Brooks visited her in Portland, brought a bottle of bourbon. They sat on her apartment balcony and talked about flying until 2 a.m. Before he left, he saluted her. She saluted back. It felt right. The FAA announced new regulations. Commercial pilots would now receive mandatory training in manual reversion procedures. Hydraulic system redundancy requirements were being reviewed. Emergency decision-making protocols were being rewritten. They were calling it the Reeves Protocol. Diana didn't know if she liked having her name on regulations, but if it saved lives, she could live with it. 6 days after Shannon, Diana was packing, not to fly home to Portland, to fly to Washington, D.C. She'd accepted the DoD position. Start date Monday. Her phone rang, secure line, encrypted, the number Richardson had mentioned. She answered. Reeves. Commander Reeves, this is NORAD Command. We have a situation. Diana's hand tightened on the phone. I'm not active duty. We're aware. This is a civilian request. There's a 787 over the North Atlantic. Hijacking attempt in progress. 240 passengers. The captain is unconscious. First officer has limited experience. Hijacker has aviation knowledge, former military. Diana closed her eyes. And you're calling me because you're the only person we know who's talked down an aircraft in crisis conditions within the last week. The first officer is requesting guidance. He's heard your name. He's asking for you specifically. I'm not qualified to... Commander, we have a civilian aircraft with 240 souls on board. The hijacker is demanding control of the cockpit. We have 18 minutes before they're out of radio range. Will you help us or not? Diana looked at her duffel bag, at the dog tag sitting on top of her folded clothes, at her right hand, tremor present but steady enough. Different plane, different ocean, same principle. She picked up her laptop, opened the secure video link NORAD was sending her. Patch me through to the aircraft, she said, and get me current weather fuel state and nearest suitable airports. Stand by. The video connected. A terrified young pilot appeared on screen, mid-20s, shaking. Behind him she could see passengers zip-tied to seats, a man with a gun pacing the aisle. Commander Reeves. The pilot's voice cracked. Is that really you? It's really me. What's your name? Tyler Chen. I've only got 800 hours. I don't know what to do. He says if I don't give him control, he'll... Tyler, listen to me. You're going to be fine. I'm going to walk you through this. But first, I need you to breathe. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. Can you do that? Tyler breathed. Raggedly, but he breathed. Good. Now tell me everything. Start with fuel state. As Tyler began talking, Diana pulled out her notepad, started writing, calculating, planning. Her right hand trembled as she wrote. But it didn't matter. She wasn't flying middle seat anymore. She was doing what she was always meant to do, saving lives. The screen showed Tyler waiting for her instructions. Behind him, through the cockpit window, she could see storm clouds gathering. Another crisis, another impossible situation. Diana looked at the dog tag one more time, then closed the laptop slightly, focusing completely on Tyler's frightened face. Okay, Tyler, she said, voice calm, steady, absolute. Here's what we're going to do. The call continued. The storm waited. And Diana Reeves, Lieutenant Commander, retired civilian consultant professional lifesaver, went back to work. Not because she had to, because 312 people had reminded her who she was, and 240 more needed her to remember.